culture of carnival. We talked about many subjects, which was fantastic, and we were sort of joking about the first thing you would do if you were elected, which was, you said, do you remember what you said the first thing you would do?
I want to get rid of the bike.
I don't believe you remember.
I'm going to go back this afternoon. Actually, what I have done is green capital invoices, announce my policy needs for housing, and a few other things, but must be returned to the bike rack.
No, but this is incredible, the things that you have done. I mean, I wanted to ask you the first things that you're going to address, but you've addressed so much already. You've made the, the transparency of the green capital financing was something that was a huge topic. You've done that in such a short time. I mean, how long ago were you inaugurated? Was it a month?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're doing pretty good. You've ported charges on the residential parking zones, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No price increases, blue badge, exemptions from prosecutions using RPZs.
Okay, and where will this go from the future? Are you going to be still installing the new RPZs that were announced, or are they all?
No, we're freezing
Right.
RPZ rollout unless areas are explicitly, and that needs to be explicitly asking for them. But what the next step is that my cabinet lead for transport, Mark Bradshaw, is working with council officers to design the tools by which all of our elected members will have the chance to talk to communities, businesses, schools about how parking can be made to work for them in their communities, so that what people will get at the end of that process will be the result of proper engagement with the communities under the leadership of locally elected members.
That's fantastic. You're actually talking to the community and listening to them.
That's the
which
idea.
Is great. On that note, we have been talking to our listeners, and they're very excited about you coming in again today. So, as we did with George Ferguson when we were in the studio, we asked the listeners to write in with some questions for you, Marvin, if that's okay. Helen, we'll come back to you shortly, don't worry. If you want to interrupt at any point, please feel free. She can hold her ground. I like that. Okay, good. So, we're going to start off with a question that actually came from a number of listeners. We're talking about a handful of people all wanting to know the same thing. Amy Goff and Jodie Schofield ask, yes, I'd like to ask Marvin why £100,000 of public money was spent facilitating a small 15 bunch of marchers, the EDL, was marching through the city on Saturday with police shutting down the whole of Park Street and closing College Green to the public. People were watching them do Nazi salutes and other violent signs, which we won't go into, but it wasn't a very peaceful process. And Amy Goff asks what he thinks about the EDL marching in Bristol on the weekend, and if he can work with other organisations to stop the EDL coming to Bristol again. Big question.
I think the £100,000 is not just about protecting those people who are out, standing up, advancing the causes of the EDL or whatever they do, and there were fewer than 20 of them. It was about protecting the city and keeping the streets of the safe free for people to walk around in fear of violence. I think to have a protest like that wasn't policed and policed properly, with people walking around past it up and down Park Street, would have been very intimidating for people. So you've got to do that. I think too, we live in a country where people can, have the opportunity, as long as they're acting within the law, they can make their points. And as distasteful as I find their messages, and not even just distasteful, I think they're playing wrong in their analysis on why the law isn't working properly for most for people. We've got to create space to have that as voice until they are breaking the law.
But the great thing about it as well on Saturday was that were all the counter marchers that wanted to go there to show them that they weren't welcome. And we were actually, me and my daughter were on Queen's Road seeing some of them gather on Saturday morning, and it was quite intimidating because these people hold views that are so far removed from what's acceptable that we have to police it. Yeah. But the best thing that happened was that I think many more people came out and said.
A lot of people want to know is how come just a small group of 15 are allowed to sort of do something like that. Is there a kind of a limit on how it works? Like if me and my mate said, right, I want to do a march, there's two of us, would that be acceptable?
Yeah, well, I suppose you wouldn't need as much policing if there were two of you. You can't really do it with just someone being rude to you.
Yeah.
But I think they anticipated that there potentially could have been more people, so they had to have a proper, program of action and containment being put in place, and that's going to be expensive. I would prefer, and the question is, do you give them the fuel? I could have even come out and made a statement saying you're not welcome here. But then again, when you do that, do you give them the fuel of the publicity that they desire?
Yeah.
For some people, their actions are merely there to stoke up an adversarial response, right? So if people go and fight them, that's one of the things they want. When people get heads up about them being there, again, they can say, well, look at that, we've come here, the political establishment, whatever they mean by that, is coming out against us. So you're caught in a real bind as to how to deal with these. Sometimes you just want to let them blow off their steam and go about their business because they're not there to be converted. They're there to make a point.
Well, it's a hot topic. We unfortunately don't have time to carry on with that right now. We've got a few more questions. Maxine Williams wants to know, she wants to